Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first day of 12 Days of Cortisol Christmas. I am so excited to introduce you to our first guest, Dr. Karen. So, Dr. Karen, do you want to tell everyone who you are?
Hi, everyone. Wynn, first of all, thank you for having me. I so appreciate you and your organization, and I am absolutely honored to be here. My name is Dr. Karen. Most people call me Dr. Karen or Doc Karen. I am a licensed clinical psychologist, and I also run an organization called the EPIC Foundation, which stands for Empowering People with Invisible Chronic Illness Foundation, which I started about 6.5 years ago. The reason why I started the organization is because of my own experiences with invisible chronic illness. Specifically, I was diagnosed with Cushing's disease, which I can get into a little bit later. And then ultimately, as a result of treating Cushing's, I acquired adrenal insufficiency. So I am now an adrenal insufficiency patient who does advocacy. And I hope to be able to share as much helpful information as I can during this live stream.
Thank you so much, Dr. Karen. We are also so grateful for you. So we're tackling a pretty intense topic today. So you are a licensed clinical psychologist. So you have a lot of information in that brain of yours on stigma and bias. So tell us what you would define fatphobia as.
Well, I would say it's the projection of a certain narrative that is negative, that includes a stigma towards people who are perceived as quote unquote fat. And, there's a lot of bias in terms of what people think is the image of people who are healthy. Who are the correct weight, who are active, etc. And so fatphobia is really, I think there are people out there who are actually phobic. And a phobia is an actual fear of something. Look, I know it sounds dramatic, but professionally and personally, I know that there are people who are afraid of people who they think are fat. They're afraid to be around them. They're afraid to talk to them. They're afraid of becoming fat themselves, whatever that means to them. And this fear, again, is something that triggers a certain projection and a certain level of really, disdain or disgust towards people. And for me personally, having dealt with an illness that causes weight gain, and then also being steroid dependent currently, and that can also mirror the illness that I did have with the fluctuations in weight and all of that. I am well too familiar with, being a part of that dynamic.
Exactly. So, like you said, I think there's an internal bias of people that say, okay, if you're a larger bodied person, you don't care about your appearance. You don't care what you eat. There's, I've even heard people say, oh, well, fat people smell. And it's like, there's this horrible dynamic of this mentality. And especially in the chronic illness field, I know that even doctors will weight shame. They'll say, oh, you have this and this because you have this. But what's ironic is on the Addison side of things, most of us, if not all, get very underweight before we're diagnosed. I was 96 pounds and I'm 5'4". So I was very thin. I didn't know what was going on. I just thought it was stress, whatever. And then fast forward, I've been on steroids. I've had a hysterectomy. Like there's other factors. I have gained weight. And so these doctors will look at me and say, oh, well, you have this and this and this because you're overweight. And it's like, well, what weight does Addison go away? And so I think that it's important, especially, in the chronic illness field, to understand that these internal biases don't define you as a person. And I think people I think it's okay to talk about weight because it's like, oh, well, I care about your health. So have you seen that within your own practice, that people get entitled because they're thinner? Like there's like this sort of like skinny supremacy, I feel like.
Yes, unfortunately, I do think that does exist. And what I will say is we definitely are socialized that way. It is definitely a societal issue, especially, in the US, I have found. And I'll tell you this, it is the one descriptor about folks where people feel entitled to give an opinion, where people feel entitled to be just outright disrespectful and inappropriate. Other issues, I feel like for the most part, many people are cognizant of, okay, you're not going to shame someone because of their gender, for instance. But yet I've been walked up to rather by a perfect stranger commenting on my weight. Why did that stranger feel entitled to comment on my weight? And I didn't even know that person. I mean, that's happened to me several times, but just, I think one of the times that it happened to me, I was so thrown off, even though it wasn't surprising per se, but that's really what got my wheels spinning about the fact that there's this sense of entitlement, the sense of superiority, even within chronic illness subgroups. So, it's incredible.
Absolutely. And I like what you said, that it's a societal thing. And when I realized this, it kind of changed my mind. So I'm going to share it. Society is basically wired to make you feel like you're not enough. Because if you thought you were enough, you wouldn't be consuming all this shapewear. You wouldn't be buying all these, body modifying things. You wouldn't be buying these weight loss supplements. You wouldn't be doing this ridiculous Peloton bike thing, which exercise is great, but those things I feel like manipulate the system. Like, you already bought this $3,000 Peloton bike, you got to do this like $40 thing. Like, go to the gym, like I feel like society has pushed this so hard that you don't care about your health. And, as a married person, I've had my husband's family say to me, well, if you loved my son, if you love my, whatever, I'm not going to say names, but if you love my, that family member, if you loved your husband, then you would worry about your weight. You would want him to be embarrassed with you in public. And it's like, there's this whole like dynamic of, okay, you must not care about yourself. But society wants to put that bias in your head. That way you're like, I do need the shapewear because I don't want to be an embarrassment to my family. I do need, this weight loss supplement because I don't deserve to eat. And I feel like if somebody that's overweight per se, hunger is your punishment. Well, you should be hungry because you're overweight. And I just feel like once we realize that that's the dynamic that's being pushed, it allows us to step back and go, you know what? I'm actually not fitting this dynamic. I'm not lazy. I do focus on, being healthy mentally, physically, spiritually. I'm not going to allow this incorrect bias to make me feel bad about myself. And I know that you work with a lot of clients with mental health. So what tips do you have for people to mentally empower themselves that they don't have to fall into that narrative?
Yes, I would say, acknowledging that the narrative that we're lazy, that we're, unhealthy, that we don't care, I think rejecting those narratives, first of all, acknowledging that they exist, which most of us who have been told these things, we know that, it exists sort of from an experience point of view, but sometimes people do go through denial or they don't want to think about it. It's just, how depressing is it to have to think about,
Absolutely.
all of those things. So I think it's important and okay to acknowledge that those narratives out there exist, but then after you acknowledge it, reject it, which is easier said than done. So how do you reject it? I think I do a lot of work in self-affirming, and I strongly believe in affirming oneself. So I will say this, that a lot of people that I have encountered either through the Epic Foundation or my therapeutic practice, sometimes they're afraid to do self-affirmations because they're not making a distinction. What they're doing is they're conflating this idea that if I self-affirm, then I'm quote unquote accepting, and I'm accepting where I'm at right now, and I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, for instance, if a person has a goal, and I'm not knocking anyone that has a goal to be a certain weight unless it becomes obsessive or disruptive to one's life. But let's just say you have a goal. You're like, oh, okay, well, I'd like to be 20 pounds away from now. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, that's your goal. It's okay to self-affirm through the journey, though. And I think some people sort of conflate these things where they say, well, if I tell myself, because I'll get to mirror work in just a second, but if I tell myself in the mirror that I'm beautiful, I'm at my perfect weight, my body is serving me, whatever it is, then it's going to work against me. And then I'm not going to get to my goal weight of 20 pounds from now. And I want to say that it's just simply not true, because really the energy that gets sort of stirred up in your space is, when you self-affirm, really is conducive towards meeting whatever goals you have, because you're celebrating and you're blessing the body that you're in. You're thanking the body for doing its work. And really, if you think about it, we we have a lot to be grateful for in terms of, look at what we've been through.
Yes.
And our bodies fought, like we fought mentally, but our bodies were right there with us fighting to get to this point. And so your body wants, to be in the best place. And so, yes, I encourage, like with the self-affirming behaviors, with that, I'll tell people to do mirror work, and specifically at night. So what that entails is, every night looking into a mirror and maybe saying 3 to 5 statements to oneself about yourself that, like feeds positivity into yourself, about yourself. So I am beautiful. I am, loved, I am at my perfect health and weight, which is an affirmation that's sort of like, deciding that, you just want to lean towards thinking that, again, that your body will serve itself. And really, that's a really great way of combating some of that stuff that can cause negative self-talk and negative self-views.
I love what you said about, your body's been through so much. I have a lot of scars on my body from a lot of surgeries, and I also have a kidney condition. So they'll tell you anytime you have anything like that, I'm going to have scars. Hysterectomy, I've got the whole big abdominal thing. And I've had a lot of personal, I don't want to say trauma, but when you look in the mirror, you think, God, what happened to me? And you realize, it kind of puts you in a victim mentality of like, whatever. But I think when we start to view our scars as medals of those battles that we've won, it changes the dynamic. We've all had people come up and say, oh, what happened to you? What happened to you? I've had people say, oh, were you a burn victim because of some of the scars? And I'm like, you know what? That's a battle that I won. Thank you for, acknowledging that medal for me.
Wow.
And I think when we switch the conversation to we're not victims, am I able to lose weight in this body currently? No. And I feel like when we start, like you said, when we get obsessive about it, I'll tell the truth about myself. I probably shouldn't be proud of because I'm not, but before the holidays, there's a lot of anxiety about, oh, I'm going to have to be around people I haven't seen in a while. I'm going to have to be around in-laws. I'm going to have to be around people. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to just slim down, just at least get my facelift puffy. So for 4 weeks, I did nothing but eat raw garlic and drink herbal tea. I didn't lose any weight. And I ended up developing a kidney infection, ironically, because they say garlic is I'm like, and then I was really sick, and I saw my PCP, and I was like, oh, have I lost any weight? She's like, no, she's like, you're up 2 pounds, but that fluctuates, it's fine. And I was like, how? I haven't eaten anything. And she's like, do you understand the inflammatory process of the body? And I'm like, I do. And she's like, and then she explained to me, like, adipose tissue is an extension of your endocrine system. And so if you have a lot of adipose tissue deposits, which specifically are behind the neck, around the abdomen, that's your body's way of extending your endocrine system, because it senses yours has failed. And that fat that you can't lose is your endocrine system. Like, you're trying to get rid of your physical body. So I think we have to truly push that narrative back onto people, not in an ugly way, but, oh, are these scars? They are metal. Thank you for noticing. Oh, am I overweight? Yes, I've decided that I want to praise my body for protecting me. And the mirror work that I'm doing is I'm looking at my body and I'm saying, I appreciate this larger form because it's protecting me. I appreciate the ability to work through this form. Am I exercising? Absolutely. I'm in physical therapy. I'm back to a healthy eating pattern. But when you become so obsessive that you're like, I have to do this, you can't bully your body into losing weight. You cannot do it. And then you sit around and put your body into fight or flight state because it's going, I've got to. And you stress yourself out. So I really like what you said about, your body's been through stuff. You're not going to look like you did at 18 before you had diseases. I'm sorry. That's the way that it is. People that have had children, they'll tell you my hips are wider. I don't know why. Well, dumb. As we get older, which is not to say we're a victim to it, but I think we have to accept that it's a work in progress. We're always improving mentally, physically, and spiritually. And if we allow ourselves to go through every process, what irritates me about weight loss is you see the before and after picture. Okay. And the only thing women are allowed to be proud of in society is weight loss. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
That's the only thing they're allowed to be proud of. And so I want to just champion, all the chronic illness people watching this. You can be proud of yourself right here at your weight, at your activity level, at your eating pattern.
That's
right. Be proud of yourself right now. You do not have to be the after picture to be respected. I respect you just for getting up and trying every day.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And what a beautiful sentiment about, the metals and changing the language, because I'm really big on the language that we use. And, that is so very important, because if we don't affirm ourselves in that way, here we are affirming the people out there, but, it's not often that you will get that. And just one disclaimer really quick, when I, talk about the affirmation of I'm at my perfect health or perfect weight, I just want to put the disclaimer out there that it's not saying, oh, I see myself as really skinny, or I see myself as, being able to use my limbs perfectly. I see myself as having, the perfect system, in the sense of, okay, let's beat ourselves up if I don't. Yeah. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying to be, like you said, to acknowledge, it's just a different way of saying it. In my larger form, this is my body's way of protecting itself. So when I say I'm at my perfect health weight, I'm saying I am where my body needs to be right now. And, I embrace that body. I embrace what my body is doing for me right now.
Absolutely. And I definitely appreciate your perspective on, how language is so important. I think that we talk to ourselves so mean, and we would never say those things to anyone else. So a good practice that I have heard is when you have a mean thought, say it out loud, because it makes you go, because you have these internal things, you'll look in the mirror and you go, oh my God, I look like a horrible, I make the joke that I'm Humpty Dumpty. And my husband's like, don't say that. Don't say you're Humpty Dumpty. And that's my way of oh, it's funny. It's a joke, but your subconscious isn't stupid. Your subconscious knows you're not happy with yourself. And so that's just reaffirming, I'm not enough. I'm not enough. And believe it or not, that mindset really affects you in all ways. It affects the way you buy things. It affects the way that you are in public. It affects the way that you present yourself. Because if you go into a situation saying, people are going to judge me because of my weight, you will not act the same way. I promise you. Because I've done it. Because I think, oh, well, I'm a larger body person. I'm over this health organization. Professionally, I'm a holistic health practitioner. I'm talking to people about herbalism or whatever in my day job. And then I run this organization. And I'm like, people won't accept me because I'm not a small person. People will assume that I don't care about my weight. And that's an internal thing. No patient I've ever had has walked in and said, I don't want to be your patient because you're overweight. They've never said that. Right. So I think when we have to change the language of, I'm not a fat person, I'm a larger bodied individual. I'm not a lazy whatever. I am challenged by a physical disability. I think it's so funny that we put all this emphasis of diet and exercise are what changes your weight. It's hormones, it's, you know, it's a lot of different factors. And it's like trying to talk to someone who has that illness or something like that. You had Cushing's, obviously.
Mhm.
It's like telling somebody, okay, you have brown eyes. Well, why can't your eyes be green? You don't believe enough. Your eyes are not green, you know? And
Mhm.
so we have to accept that maybe at this point, this is what your body needs, and it's not going to change, because if it did, maybe that would harm you.
Absolutely. And it can get to the point in terms of obsessing where you feel like it's never enough. So, like for me, having had Cushing's, I gained 150 pounds. So I gained, basically half of my weight essentially. And, you know, fast forward several years later, I'm not where I was, but I'm still not at the height of where I was with active Cushing's. But yet I know so many people in my shoes who are just like, it's still not enough. It's still not enough. It's still not enough. No matter how much progress they've made. Now, and for them, that means everything because for them, weight loss isn't necessarily just about like what I look like. It's representative of the
Yes.
Cushing's being in remission. And so
Yeah.
there's a huge psychological tie to weight gain or weight loss. But if you obsess over it, and mind you, people who don't know me, so like people who I graduated high school with, I graduated high school in 1996, right? If I run into someone from 1996, to them, they're going to be like, whoa, I don't even recognize you
Yeah.
because you're so much bigger than what I remember. But yet my cushy crew, the people who saw me right before, my first brain surgery, they're going to be like, oh my goodness, you skinny girl, look at you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you're so much thinner than what I remember. So you have to self-affirm. You have to, because, what's the alternative?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that people will always nitpick, and anybody that's on any platform will know we've gotten the nasty comments.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're really thin, they'll say something about your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Even if this, that, and the other. It's like we live in a world where angry people have access to keyboards now. And so they're
Absolutely.
so miserable,
Absolutely.
they have to project that. And so
Yeah.
I think that's why self-affirming is so important, because a lot of times people will, like you said, they'll project. They're not happy with their appearance, and they see
That's
somebody
right.
that's walking in their own space and their own truth confident. They hate that because they aren't that way. And it's just like your spirit angers their demons for some reason, and they're just like
Mm-hmm.
attacking you. And it's like when you have the mentality of, this is not about me, this is about their perceived biases.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, people will just walk up to you. When I first got married, I went back to my hometown. My husband was a police officer there, and it was a really cute story. But anyways, I went back, and I hadn't been back since I graduated in 2010. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it was 2020 at the time. It'd been 10 years. A lot of people hadn't seen me. Well, we ran into this couple that JP had gone to church with, and the guy looked at me and goes, "Wow, JP, you didn't marry a skinny woman," in the middle of the store. And mind you, these
Wow.
people were still in church clothes, okay? And I
Oh,
didn't
wow.
even dignify it with a response. I just walked off. Well, I was so like stunned that he didn't ask me if I was happy. He didn't say, "What
Right.
for you?" It was like, oh, and his
Right.
first reaction was, because he was like, "This is my wife." So, "Oh, why you didn't marry a skinny woman?" I walked off. I went in the car and I cried, and I thought,
Mm-hmm.
that's all people are ever going to see. They're not going to see the organization that I run. They're not going to see the books that I've written. They're not going to see. But that was what that man chose to see.
That's right.
And people that are
That's right.
shallow, they're going to go for shallow stuff. They're going to attack you on the things out here. But
Yeah.
anybody who's of any moral caliber is going to get to know you. They're
That's right.
going to be interested in your story. They're going to respect you at any, body form.
Absolutely.
The hippie thing is like namaste, which basically means my soul recognizes your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we surround ourselves with love for ourselves, and we acknowledge that we can be who we are,
Yeah.
regardless of the body size, that helps us kind of deflect those things, because you're not going to stop those people. We're not going to be able to stop the full skinny supremacy that's going on, because people do feel superior, and they need that because that's all they have. If
Mm-hmm.
you look at all these like skinny health influencers, and I'm not knocking them, but most of them are in their 20s. They don't have children. They don't have any real responsibilities. And yeah, when you have that kind of life, and I'm not hating them for it, but you can go to the gym all the time, but when you're older and you have parents that are elderly, you have to take care of, you have young children, you're not as available. And I want to make the point that when you have a chronic illness, you have about this much energy. And if you burn it all out at the gym or doing some, heavy physical therapy or whatever, you don't have anything left. And I've learned that with my own life, that if I do prioritize going to the gym every day and whatever, my professional life suffers, my marriage suffers, my family suffers, and you have to have balance. So what tips do you have for chronic illness people to find that balance of being physically active and being mentally healthy and things like that?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think that you will notice when, you're running out of gas. And when you're running out of gas, and I remember I do a live stream called Dates with Daryl, where I talk to one of our executive board members about things related to chronic illness. And I remember a few months ago, we did a live about our gas, using the analogy of the gas in the gas tank in a car. And how, some people will wait until they're on empty, but guess what? Like, if you're on empty, number one, most cars will give you a warning. So it'll tell you how many miles you have left until you got to push that car because it's not going to run anymore. Well, guess what? Have you ever seen someone on the street pushing their car? Because people will wait until the warning, and even past the warning, they'll continue to go and try to run that car. And ultimately that car just spontaneously, well, it's not really spontaneously, but abruptly will stop.
Yeah.
And because of that reason, I ask that people pay very close attention to the signals, and your body will give you signals. Absolutely. Won't it? I mean, that's part of what our body does. That's one of the reasons why we fought so hard for our diagnoses, for doctors to pay attention, because we knew in our whole being that something was wrong. And so I encourage everyone who is watching now and who watches in the future to be that self-aware, to be that present. The new definition of mindfulness is being present in every moment without judgment.
Absolutely. I love that.
And so being able to be present and just really pay attention, because I notice when I'm paying attention, okay, I will start, listening. And, I think sometimes we take for granted, I don't mean to ramble here, but I think we sometimes take for granted that we can just go because there are times where it feels like we can.
Absolutely.
And so, because of that, even the people around us might be surprised when we stop. And so I notice that there are days that are bad days for me. Like I can't. And it's not necessarily that I am like so sick that day, or I've experienced a crisis or anything like that. But that's me more so paying attention to my body and putting fuel in the tank before I get on empty.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about, listening to your body. The subconscious does not have language. The subconscious can't say to you, look, stop, but it will give you symptoms. And I think when we start looking at symptoms as language, okay, I'm getting a headache, I'm feeling nauseous, like, what do I need to do? And I know that a lot of us that have chronic illnesses, we know the mind, body, spirit thing. We get that. But I feel like a lot of us ignore the body part of it because that's the one that we can't control. I'm guilty of that because I'm like, what, mindset, I'm good. I can get it,
That's right.
Spiritually, like, okay, I'm safe, whatever. And then you just kind of ignore your body because you're like, I don't like that part, and I want to reiterate the mirror work because actually, I have put plastic tablecloths from the Dollar Tree over my mirrors, and I call them terror shields because I was just like,
really?
Yeah, I was in such a negative state about it. And I started doing physical therapy with this amazing physical therapist the past month, and she's like, are you scared? I said, absolutely not. I've had this forever. She's like, your body is. And I'm like, what? And she's like, every time I go near you, because they have tools and everything, she's like, every time I work with you, your body tenses up. She goes, mentally,
Wow.
you're looking at me telling me that you're fine. She goes, I can see that, but your body is terrified. And I never
Wow.
put that together. And it blew my mind because I'm like, you know what? I do ignore my body because I don't like it. I
Yeah.
don't like the way it looks. I don't like the way it feels. And I really appreciated her saying that because you do have those subconscious things that you don't even know are there. And so I
That's
think
right.
body awareness is so important. So I took the tablecloths off the mirrors, and
That's
every
right.
day I'm thanking my body, saying, this form protects me. This
Yes.
form has served me well. It may evolve in the future, but this form is serving me well.
That's
So
right.
I
That's
so
right.
appreciate your perspective on that. And so the last thing I want to just talk on is when people come up to you, family members, whatever, and say, I'm worried about your health or weight. My trick is that I act like I have no idea that I'm fat. I go, oh my God, I had no idea.
I
That
love
works.
that.
But it's probably not the most mature thing, especially with strangers. Like, I'll go into a full meltdown, like, oh, I had no idea. And they're just like, what? How do you not know? It's like, I don't have mirrors. We don't believe in mirrors. And I just like totally go off the rail with it. But what
Yeah.
advice do you have for people that have people come up and say those things?
Yeah. I love that, by the way. So maybe I'm a little I lack some maturity when it comes to that. But I was like, man, I should steal that idea. I love that.
Please do. We need to make a reality show where we like videotape it.
That's
Like,
gonna be my next TikTok.
Yes.
I love your sense of humor, and I love the fact that we can laugh together because this is a serious topic, and really, folks, this is it can be very depressing.
Yes.
It can be very depressing. I mean, the strength that it takes to talk about this, I think, is amazing when because I mean, the reality is that it can really be draining, very depressing, and very consuming. And so I love the fact that we're having these conversations and we can be light about it as well. But let's say you don't want to take Wynn's approach. I honestly have become comfortable in walking away. I think we ought to give ourselves permission to block out energy that doesn't belong in our space, and that's okay. It doesn't even warrant a response. Again, they're not entitled to get a response. Because when that person is saying to you, oh my goodness, look how much weight you've gained, which I've been told that before. What is wrong with you? Is something wrong? My favorite, I can relate to the husband comment because, our husbands are fine, and I have a fine husband, and, people will actually say the audacity for people to say, oh my goodness, he's such a saint for staying with you. Oh my goodness, how does he feel looking so good and being with someone like you? Look, it used to destroy me. I had people literally ask me if I was my husband's mom at certain points.
Wow.
It destroyed me. It was humiliating, embarrassing, and I kind of used the trick that you talked about, being self-dehumanizing, saying, you talked about certain descriptors. I call myself a black Oompa Loompa. I'm ashamed to say it, but I've said that. Yes, I'm the black Oompa Loompa. And my husband's like, would you please stop calling yourself an Oompa Loompa? Like, stop it. And, really, again, that's a way of deflecting and being able to deal with, the craziness in the world today as it comes to fat shaming, or fatphobia, as we're talking about today. But I want to convey very strongly, anyone who makes a comment about you or gives their opinion or projects a narrative, they don't have the right, nor are they owed any response or any answers about your health or your weight. I'm still a work in progress, but gosh darn it, I'm still working on it. And I will continue to work on it. And I will continue to remind myself that they're not owed anything, and not just laymen. Because I want to just quickly point out, we've talked about the bias in the medical community. there is research that is very, very clear that there is shaming that goes on from medical professionals, and they will shame us. And so we feel like maybe we have, we owe them something. But also, I more work rather needs to be done in the mental health field, even within mental health. And there's a subspecialty called health psychology. And unfortunately, I have met a lot of health psychologists who I think subconsciously hold bias and stigma towards folks who they deem overweight or obese. That's their title and their labels. And, and so they tie it into mental health. Some people have been afraid in the Cushing's community to seek out mental health help because they're saying, I know something's wrong with me. And then that person is, co-signing on the idea that, no, you're just not willing to put down the candy bar or whatever the projection is. And it's a shame because we want to build trust with people in the community. And that's what, our organizations do, is try to build trust in that way. I want to give a shout out to a movement. It's called Health at Every Size, the acronym HAES. There are health at every size therapists out there. Wow. And health at every size, I just want you to Google it.
Yes.
Health at every size. Everyone out there, Google health at every size. It's a thing. People are resistant to it because I've gotten into, low-key debates with people about the movement. But it's a strong movement. And there are mental health professionals who are certified health at every size professionals. They're not going to shame you. They're not going to project blame. They're not going to tell you it's because of you that you're having these experiences. And they're not going to call you obese or overweight. They're not. And so I want to, basically strongly just reiterate the fact that you want to be around people whom you can trust and who encourage and empower you.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to hear that organization exists. I will put that information on the comment section of this video when it's later posted. Like she said, there are so many resources, and that's one reason I wanted to do, the Cortisol Christmas event, is because I feel like when you're in this little box of endocrinology, especially within, the adrenal insufficiency demographic, you're so shamed. And I feel like we don't take care of ourselves, and especially with steroids. As we know, steroids can cause puffiness, it can cause weight gain, it can cause water retention. And we're so have that mindset of steroids are bad. And even those of us that are veterans will restrict our steroid even to this day. Like,
that's right.
Like I mentioned, I had a kidney infection because I was not really taking care of my body the way I should have. And I ended up going into crisis one night because I didn't updose. And I know. But I was like, oh, it's near the holidays. I don't want to be puffy. And I didn't. Well, I ended up having to go into crisis and having to be injected by a family member. And the next day, that hasn't happened in a long time. The next day, my family member was like, do you see what your focus on weight is doing? Like, I love you the way that you are. Other people love you. Like, you are respected within the community. Why are you doing this? And my thought was, I don't want it to look like this disease has won. Like, to me, I couldn't lose weight. So that means I was the victim. And my family member was like, why are you not looking at everything that you've done despite of it? Every time that you push through something, that's you winning. Don't let a number on a scale or some ignorant doctor tell you that. And so I just want to encourage the adrenal insufficient community. Don't be afraid to give your body what it needs. You need to eat. Okay. Hunger is not hunger is not a badge of honor. Okay. I am so tired of seeing, like, I feel like it's like skinny Olympics. Like, oh, I've gone so many days and I'm on this calorie restriction, and that should not be praised. Food restriction should not be praised. I'm sorry. It shouldn't be. Healthy dieting is not being obsessive with it. Healthy dieting is saying, is this body going to fuel me? Is this food going to fuel my body? Is this a nutritious thing? And honestly, sometimes if you're in like a situation, if you're traveling, you will have to eat the bag of pretzels at the airport. I'm sorry.
Right.
but that doesn't mean that you don't care about your health. And I have a fear, and like I said, it's subconscious bias that I don't like to eat unhealthy things in the presence of other people. Like I said, at the airport, I have to fly to Kentucky to see my endocrinologist. I had to get the bag of pretzels, and I was like, are people going to think I shouldn't eat this because I'm a larger body person? And I caught myself, and I went, that is the stupidest thing. Why are you not want to eat a bag of pretzels? I don't eat that every day. I don't have pretzels in my house, but it's all I have. So I just want to encourage, this community, give your body what it needs. You need food, you need steroids, and don't restrict yourself just because you think, oh, I need to look a certain way. Steroids do have side effects, but there's no side effects worse than death. I'm sorry.
Yeah. We have a person who's part of our EPIC team who's a nutritional expert, and it's very controversial, but she talks about how every category of food serves us in some way. And even the ones that we stereotype as being unhealthy. So, we talk about the sugars, okay, or the carbs. I mean, those are things, I'm a type 2 diabetic. I cannot go every day without carbs. I will become hypoglycemic and die. So, but when people think about diabetes, and I acquired diabetes secondary to Cushing's disease, but when people talk about diabetes or they think about it, they think about, oh, well, don't eat too much sugar. Like they're not thinking about the other end of things, which is you need a certain amount of carbs to survive as a diabetic. So there's certain amounts that do serve you. So that's number one. And I've got some videos out there. Her name is Chanel Curtis Felder, and I've got a couple of videos out there with her, and she explains some of that stuff, and we'll do some in the future too. So that's important to remember. But for the Cushing's community and for every community, one ironic thing, and there is concrete empirical research out there that says that strenuous diet and exercise increases cortisol levels.
Yes.
Now, that's ironic, right? That's why I used to do this particular method of movement that was only 15 minutes, because my late friend did research with a physician, and they saw that if you go well to over 30 minutes, like an hour, what have you, got people out there who are working out for 2 hours, who are restricting food, the cortisol levels increase. So if you're an active Cushing's patient,
that's gonna make
what you'll notice is that you're more likely to gain weight than to lose weight if you're restricting and if you're engaging in strenuous exercise.
Absolutely. And on the adrenal insufficient side, I'm Addison's, and so high cortisol to me sounds like a dream, but I know it's not. And so to that point, when you're Addison's, when you're adrenal insufficiency and you work out, you do not have the cortisol to cover that. If you're working out an hour, 2 hours strenuous, you do not physically have the cortisol.
That's right.
And what people will do is they'll go, okay, I did that workout. And then they'll go into crisis later, because your body not only has to have enough to go through it, but also to recover from it. And so even though, I'm like, okay, I did the workout, I did the thing. There's a thing called stress letdown. And even in non-adrenal disease people, it happens. And it's because you've had this such high adrenaline level that it falls, and then you feel like dirt. And what's dangerous with Addison's patients is that you'll exercise, you'll think you did good, and then your body doesn't have the cortisol to recover from it. So what do you have to do? You have to inject, and then you have to double your dose, and then So with exercise, please be mindful, anyone, even if you don't have an adrenal condition, your body is going to react to internal and external stimuli. So if you're internally telling your body that you hate it, and if you're pushing it farther than it wants to go physically, and if you're restricting food, it's going to go into fight or flight mode. Okay. And what does your body do during fight or flight mode? It restricts. It's called down regulation. And so your body actually starts to shut parts of it down that it doesn't need. And so you're going to have trouble with fertility if you're a woman, even men too, but you're not going to be able to conceive if you're a woman if your body's in that down regulation. You're going to have trouble with your digestion because your body is down regulating. It's going to say, okay, I only have this much. I need to restrict. And it's going to do what? Adipose tissue. So all those adipose tissue things, it's going to hold on to that. So if you push yourself with diet, if you push yourself with exercise, if you push yourself mentally, that is not going to make you healthier. And I know that the language and the narrative is, if you just diet and exercise hard enough, you can lose weight. If you're not losing weight, it's because you're not trying hard enough. Throw that mindset out the window, because there is no scientific evidence that proves that. And what it is obesity did not used to be a diagnosis. Do you know that? It was only created as a diagnosis code because there's anti-obesity medications now.
That's right.
I don't know, like Saxenda is one. There's one, Mounjaro or something like that. Those are considered obesity medications. We used to, obesity was not a disease. And I know there's, conflicting evidence on whether it is or not. I'm not a doctor, I'm not going to say, but I am going to say that if you're overweight, that doesn't automatically make you unhealthy. If you're at a healthy weight, that doesn't automatically make you healthy, because health is not what people think it is. Health is the ability to live your life. Health is the ability to be around your loved ones, to experience things. That's what health is. Health is not a look, and health is really not a feeling. Health is being able to experience life. So I love what you said about walking away. Let's start walking away. When someone comments on your videos, stupid junk, don't delete, block. We are no longer responding to this. I love that. Thank you for that.
I'd like to have a walk away movement.
Yes.
Let's totally do a walk away campaign.
There's a Kelly Clarkson song about that. All right, call Kelly up. Hey, Kelly.
Look.
She's actually come out about a lot of that stuff too, because she's been so weight shamed and all that stuff.
She has.
So, all right, Kelly, we're gonna tag you in this video.
That's right.
You gotta walk away.
We gotta walk away.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything else that you would like to add on this topic, Dr. Karen?
Thank you. I'm so encouraged that folks want to hear about this. And you are a champion for this movement, and I'm just really, really grateful that you reached out to me, and that, you perceive me as a person who's also a champion for the walkaway movement, essentially, and really addressing these very difficult issues, and I just think, start today, start doing, I encourage everyone out there to start today. We've been so gaslit into believing, especially women, I think, are stereotyped as being dramatic, histrionic. Oh, you're making too big a deal of this. You're over embellishing, over exaggerating. No, these are our experiences. And so, our response will be to self-affirm, to do the mirror work, to, be present in the moment, to find balance. And, again, the Health at Every Size movement and organization, they don't even, and this is when I started doing this work, they don't deem foods as categorically good food or bad food. So, we mentioned the pretzels earlier, just changing my language, internal language and mindset in terms of, I don't care if it's a bowl of ice cream. I'm not going to project the label of bad onto that bowl of ice cream. It takes a lot of work to get to that point. And I know there are going to be people out there who wholeheartedly disagree. And that's okay, because I'm going to walk away.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Karen. Again, you can check out her foundation. It is Epic Foundation. We are proud affiliates. And I will put all her organization's information, as well as the Health at Every Size, in the bottom of this video. So I just want to close with this statement. The beauty that you bring into the world has nothing to do with your looks. I just want to affirm to you guys that, at the end of this life, nobody's going to look at your casket, and then this sounds dark, but nobody's going to say, you know what, she was a size 6. She had the best clothes. They're going to say, you know what, she loved me. She did this and this and this in the world. And so I think we need to change that perspective to appreciating who we really are. And that's got nothing to do with your size. So the beauty that you bring into the world, nothing to do with your looks. So again, thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you, Dr. Karen. You can continue to watch all our events here on the 12 Days of Cortisol Christmas. So we've got some really cool things. So check out our Facebook and also our website. So we will see you guys next time. Thank you again.
Thank you.